Saturday, we'll look at Joshua 6, 7, no, 7, 8, 9, and 10. We looked at 6 yesterday, and it ended with the Lord was with Joshua, and his fame was in all the land. And chapter 7 begins with that word, but. But before that, tomorrow, Sunday morning, of course, again, the fourth Sunday of the month, we have worship at 9 o'clock in Mabel and Sutton, and 10:30 at Our Savior's in McHenry. We have a baptism at Our Savior's tomorrow, and it's always a joyous day, and lots of family gathers together for that. So um, just tomorrow, say a special prayer for baby Cal and his family, and as we do the baptism and celebrate as Jesus has told us to. In chapter 7, we're beginning with that word but, that always, throws us something into the side. It's just like, therefore, you want to read what happened, but here's the but, but someone broke faith. One person took something they shouldn't have from the conquest. And that was against what God had said, and so God was no longer with the Israelites. They had kind of fallen out of favor. Imagine that so quickly. And Joshua sent some men up to check out this city, Ai. And they came back and they said, oh, not everybody needs to go. 2, maybe 3,000 people, that'll be great plenty, and it's this and that and everything. And so, okay, they send them up, and what happens? They get routed. And 36 of their men are killed in battle. And they come back just utterly devastated. And it says the hearts of the people melted and turned to water. Here they had this wonderful victory at Jericho, and then boom, what happens? Failure. Joshua understands, figures out. He tears his clothes. He says, God, why did you abandon us? What's going on here? And why have you brought this people across the Jordan to hand us over to the Amorites so that they will destroy us? Why not be content just to let us be where we were and not have to worry about, these, and all this. And God, speaks to Joshua and says, stand up. Somebody has sinned against me. They have taken, he said, they have taken some of the devoted things. They have stolen and acted deceitfully, and they have put them with their own belongings. Rather than, sharing the plunder, they had hoarded. And God tells Joshua how to determine who it was. He says, I will show you the person. Call all the clans and then by the families. And sure enough, they single out this person. And they do to this person as God had instructed. They take him out of the city and stone him. And, it's just, but again, as horrid as that sounds, and as horrid as it is, it shows God's intent, and it shows, God's faithfulness to what he said, if you obey me, I will bless you. If you don't obey me, curses will come, and here's what happened. So they take care of that problem. And then chapter 8 begins the conquest. Chapters 8, 9, or 10 are basically the conquest of the lands. And so Joshua sends men against this city, Ai. I don't know if you're supposed to say A or I, or I've heard it both ways. So anyway, he decides to attack and conquer this city. And we're going to do it this way. We're going to set an ambush. We're going to take a whole bunch of men and go up behind it. And we're going to some up in the front. And the people of the army in the front will start to retreat as, to lure them into the trap, just like they retreated before and ran, and all of the army will come out of the city, and then boom, we'll spring the trap and ambush, and we will annihilate them. And they do, and this annihilation, that word just, grates at me, but this is God's plan. This is God's activity, and it's as much as it sounds horrid. It's God fulfilling his promise to Abraham, to Isaac, to Jacob, to the Israelites, to give them this land. And, they kill all of the residents. And then, verse 23, the king of Ai was taken alive and brought to Joshua. And, you first read that, you think, oh, well, there's, but, they kill him by hanging him too. I mean, it's just, but this is what God told them to do. And as hard as it seems for us to accept it, they were following and doing as God told them. And it's just hard things to read, so much here. And after that victory at this city, Joshua builds a temple or an altar to God, and they sacrifice to him. Chapter 9 begins with a little bit of different stuff going on. Some people from one of the other groups of people, they see what has happened, and they see, God is with these people, and see how he is totally, the Jericho is gone, and Ai is gone, and the people are gone, and we need to do something to protect ourselves. So they send some people to Joshua, to the Israelites, and say, we have come from a far land, and we'd like to have peace with you, because we know all of this. And, they're lying, because they only live 3 days' journey away. They're not very far. And but Joshua signs a peace treaty with them, an agreement to not come against them with war and not to destroy them. And even when they find out just a few days later that they've been tricked into this, they remain true to the word, true to the agreement, and they do not war against them. They do not defeat them. However, in verse 22 of chapter 9, Joshua summoned them and said, why did you deceive us, saying we live far from you, when you didn't? That's a lie. Now, therefore, you are cursed, and you will be slaves, hewers of wood and drawers of water for the house of my God. So you will be allowed to live, but you will be slaves. You will be servants, forever, for perpetuity. And he says, and they say to Joshua, why? He asked, why did you do this? And this is a great answer. He said, I just had it now, and because we were in great fear for our lives because of you, and did this thing, and now we are in your hands. So they were fearful for their lives. They had seen, as I mentioned, the conquest of Jericho, the conquest of Ai, how the Israelites were successful when they were faithful to God. I mean, and whether they knew that it was because of being faithful to God is who knows for sure, but they saw the power, the might, and everything that was there. And so they did. On that day, they became the servants, the slaves, hewers of wood and drawers of water, and excuse me, it's kind of, almost similar to the way the Israelites were in Egypt, slaves of the slaves that way. Chapter 10, when this other king of Jerusalem heard how Joshua had defeated the people of Ai and utterly destroyed it and its king, and he called together a bunch of other kings of other cities, and he says, you guys have to come and help me, and we got to attack this king that made peace with him, and we got to we got to be prepared against this rising of these Israelites. And they come together against these people that had made this agreement with the Israelites, and then they call against the Israelites, do not abandon us. Don't let the other people kill us. I mean, we agreed to be your servants so that you wouldn't kill us. Now give us your protection. And God says to Joshua, do not fear them, for I've handed them over to you, and none of them will stand before you. So Joshua gets up and with his army, and they march all night from Gilgal, and the Lord throws the other armies into a panic, and they fled before the Israelites. And excuse me. In verse 12 it says, on the day when the Lord gave the Amorites over to the Israelites, Joshua spoke to the Lord And he said, sun, stand still at Gibeon, and moon in the valley of the Ajana. And the sun stood still and the moon stopped until the nation took vengeance on their enemies. And so during the battle, the time just kind of stood still, but the battle went on and the Israelites were successful. And then there's the question, is this not written in the book of Jashar? Well, we don't have any record of that book. So it's other than this statement, that it was recorded in another journal. The sun stopped in mid-heaven and did not hurry to set for about a whole day, it says. There's never been another day like it when the Lord heeded a human voice. And then Joshua and all returned to the camp, and the 5 kings fled and hid themselves. But then they found the kings, and they put your feet on the king's neck, and so the other kings were all destroyed as well. So it's just the conquest of the land takes place, and it goes on. Verse 28: Joshua took Makkedah. Joshua passed from Makkedah to Limnah, and so the conquest is ongoing. In verse 40, so Joshua defeated the whole land, the hill country, the Negev, and all of the lowlands. Joshua returned with all Israel with him to the camp at Gilgal. So the conquest of the land is ongoing, and the promise of God to the people is being fulfilled.